Hi guys, hope everybody had a good day. I've had a few people asking about a video on how basically I short and do some day trades on Apple around the time that Cal Dennis's mobile closer comes out, because I generally don't follow his guidelines exactly. So let me just go over an example from the other day, and if you guys have any questions, hit me up in the description in the comments below, or just reach out to me. So there's nothing fancy that I do about the day trades on Apple, and there's 3 or 4 indicators that I use simultaneously that are very simple and easy to follow, so I can go through some of the ideas here, and hopefully you can use this information, look up some more stuff on it, and find what works the best for you. So this is a chart of Apple from the other day. It's around the time here where Kyle starts to do mobile closers. So this is where I basically start watching Apple in the afternoons. And really, there's nothing special about Apple. I just started to watch it because I'm in the Kyle Dennis mobile closer program, and he kind of brought Apple into the forefront of my mind, especially in the afternoon and in the mornings, like first thing in the morning. So yeah, so I started day trading Apple's charts and make a few $100s a day. Not every single day. Sometimes I lose 40, 50 bucks, but usually it's a few $100 win for me. And I'll just go through this example so you guys can maybe watch the chart and see if there's anything that you want to follow here. So let's get started. So this, like I said, this is Apple chart, and I was watching it throughout the afternoon, and I noticed this line of resistance here. So I started to get interested when this broke up through the resistance, knowing that mobile closers was also just kind of starting in this time zone as well. So what I first noticed was this big candle breaking out, and I was like, okay, this thing, this might be a really bullish pattern for the rest of the day. But I watched it for a bit, and it seemed to form this double top, and that's often a bearish sign. These are 1 minute candles, by the way. So it formed this like bearish top, well, double top, which is bearish at this line here. And I was like, okay, well, actually this might be a short. So I watched the candles a little bit, and you can see that on these 1 minute candles, they started to weaken and close beneath the 5 MA. So you can just add this to your charts. I'm using the 5 MA on the 1 minute time frame here, but you can pick which one that works best for you. This is just the default on weeble, and it works really well for me. So that's the first 2 things that made me start to think I'd like to short this chart here. It's the double top at this line of resistance, and then the fact that this 1 minute candle started to close beneath the moving average. So if you look back over most charts, but Apple's particularly consistent, when things are in an uptrend on Apple, the candles are generally staying above the moving average, and when they're in a downtrend, they're generally staying beneath the moving average. So it's very consistent, and it's a very good way to judge the trend, or the short-term trend at least. However, with day trading and this style of scalping and shorting and buying over the short time frame, I never like to rely on just 1 or even 2 indicators. I prefer to stack as much as possible in my favor, because who's to say that this doesn't just break down a bit and then immediately shoot up? I mean, we don't know that. It's best to have as much evidence in your favor as possible. Somebody once told me that you should look for a reason not to take a trade. So when you look at all your indicators, try and find the one that says don't do this, and then listen to that one. And that'll minimize any losses. And the worst thing that happens is you don't take that many trades, right? So the first thing, these 2 lines, this line of resistance with the double top and the candle closing underneath the moving average. Then I look at the volume, so you can see that the volume here has been pretty weak. So this green candle here, even though it still closed underneath the moving average, the next one was not exactly, this green volume was quite small. It's not like this one, a huge volume coming in, or these ones. It's a very small green candle. And then the volume started to increase with the red candles coming up. So volume's important as well. So that's the double top, the closing beneath the moving average, and some volume issues. The next one that I always look at, and you can just plot this on your chart, is the RSI, the Relative Strength Index. So the general rule here is if you're starting to point downwards, like this arrow, so up around here, starting to look like a downward thing, that generally shows that the stock is weakening and that a downtrend will ensue. So this works both ways, pointing up, usually bullish, pointing down, usually bearish. And then finally, the one that I use is the MACD. So these are the MACD lines here. You can see these two. The general thing here that you can see is when the stock is in an uptrend, the yellow line will be above the blue. And then when it reverses to go down, the yellow crosses down through the blue. And you can see that the yellow starts going down. And that's the same, that sign like shows the short-term bearish pattern. So again, you don't want to do this too soon though. So you want to, with all these types of trades, these intraday trades, you want to look for confirmation. So with the confirmation for this, it's really just, is it closing beneath the candle and is the next candle bearish as well? So that's like confirming the direction of the price. Then the RSI, and then with the MACD, you don't want to get in too soon because it is possible that the MACD doesn't cross it, it just kind of goes up and then starts continuing the way it was. So you want to look at this like little gap here. Is the gap getting wider? Is it starting to spread out more? Or is it staying the same? For example, maybe here, they're not really crossing and you get this kind of sideways price action. So that would be the confirmation. You want to look for this gap starting to, between these two lines, starting to get larger and larger. So you give it a little bit more time. Now, a lot of people are wary to do this because there's this desperation to get the best possible price, right? So I could have shorted it up here, but there's no confirmation at this point, right? We're still above the moving average. I could say, well, there's resistance here, but is that enough? No, because this could have just continued up. So you leave it a little later than you're comfortable with in order to be as accurate as possible in predicting the trend. So same with the MACD. So that's really what I did the other day on Apple. I think so I shorted it here and I watched these candles just trending down. And the general rule is for finding a place to sell or take your profits is that as long as it's trending below the moving average, you're probably okay. And as soon as it starts to confirm a change in direction with this little bullish candle, for example, you might want to consider covering if you're going short here. So again, I try and stack the indicators for this. Like you can sometimes get a little candle poking over that will just, sell off again and continue down. But when you look at this chart, and this is what I did, you can see that there's this line of support from these previous highs all the way to here. So there's a good bet that when I went short here that I would at least get down to here. And so I watched it basically to form these dojis here, signaling that it was probably finding support at these previous lines here and here. So that's the first thing I was looking at to take profits, is this thing was holding around this level. And then of course when this little green candle on the 1 minute chart closes above the moving average, that's another sign that this thing is starting to potentially at least find support here, if not reverse direction. And then if you look at the volume starting to come in, the green volume is bigger than it was when it was starting to fade. So you can see that things are starting to turn against me with my short here. Then you look at the RSI and you can see right at this point here, the RSI is starting to turn up at the same time that the candles for the upturn are forming. So all those things combined forced me to cover my short in this region here to lock in my profits. Now it's a small move, I think it's about 50 cents or even less. I use a large amount of shares just because in order to make any money on these moves you've got to use quite a bit of shares, quite a bit of money to do that. So you could do an option on this though, right? You could buy a put and play the option down to here. I've done that before in mobile closers where I just take the profits really quickly and then buy a call for this upturn. And the same thing, so I rebought back in here to do a long because all the indicators were suggesting the RSI, the crossover, the bullish close above the moving average, the increase in volume coming in. So I went long here again based on the bounce off of the support, based on all these indicators that I've been talking about. And at the same time, Kyle Dennis in Mobile Closers called out that he was buying call options a bullish indicator, basically, that he had, you know, his analysis basically said this thing is probably going to go up tomorrow. So I knew that all those things combined would probably mean an uptrend into the close. So that's what I did. I bought long here and I sold at the end of the day, I think just after close up here. So I basically doubled my profits, right? I got the short down and then the long up. And I don't think this day I held anything overnight, because basically with large position sizes, you can short and do a long, or do two shorts depending on the chart for that day, and not risk having to hold stuff overnight. And it's just more manageable. So for example, in the after hours, you can manage your position. So if you get some nice increase in price in the after hours, you can sell. You are not restricted like you are with options. So I've really tended towards doing stocks on these mobile closer trades, even though it's supposed to be an options trading service. So I hope that helps. This isn't rocket science. This is basic day trading. There's nothing fancy here. And I think if you go away and you learn some of this stuff, if you don't know it already, and just implement it. One trick is just to buy one share, right? So if you don't want to lose money while you're learning this, like if you wanted to short it, just short one share and see how you do. Get a feel for it. Do it all day long. You'll end up basically not making any money really, but you'll learn how these indicators can help you make money, and you can slowly increase your position size. And before you know it, you'll be making hundreds of dollars every day on Apple in a relatively stress-free way. So I hope that helps explain to you guys what I do on Apple every day, and also other stocks, but Apple's one that I've kind of put time aside in the last 30 minutes of the day to trade along with Kyle's mobile closer stuff. So I hope that's helpful, and just let me know in the comments or hit me up on Discord or in a Facebook group, and I'll happily go through more of this with you. Alright, thanks.